Hello, everybody, and welcome to this What's New in ForNAV webinar. I'm Jan Silverman, and luckily I have a group of good people to help me today with this. So it's Michael, it's Renee, and it's Jacob. So just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please use the tool in GoToWebinar. If it's what we consider an urgent question, we'll take it right away, or in most cases, we'll take all the questions at the end of this webinar. And also the recording will be available probably sometime tomorrow on our YouTube channel, ForNAV Reports. So the overview of ForNAV 7.0, first of all, it's support for Microsoft Dynamics Business Central 21, and of course that goes both on-prem and cloud. Then we have some very exciting new stuff regarding Excel reporting. So far, we have focused very much on the document reports, sales, purchase, service, labels, and so on. But of course, we fully realize and understand that there's a lot of need for internal reports, and people really love to use Excel for that. So now we have a solution for that as well. We have also made some rather significant enhancement to Universal Code. We have, as always, enhanced capabilities in the designer. And as always, our focus is really to both increase your productivity and to make sure that you don't have to do any code, or at least as little code as possible. There are, of course, updates to the report pack, again, both on-prem and cloud. We have strong improvements to direct print, including support for Zebra Printer, and there's also support for DevOps. So what we will show you today is, first we're going to talk about Universal Code, Excel reporting, and the designer. That will all be done by Michael. Then Renee will give us an update on the report pack. Jacob will give us an update on direct print, and we will end with the Q&A. But before we get started, I'd just like to show you a few things from our website. First and foremost, our knowledge base. We have a lot of knowledge base articles on a number of different topics. So please use this if you have any questions or anything you are looking for. You can always use the search capability on our website. And the other thing I want to mention is our coffee break videos. I know a lot of you are watching these on a weekly basis. But there's a lot of coffee breaks now here. You see the list is long. We're not doing any coffee breaks here in January because we are sort of cleaning up the existing coffee breaks, but we will start again in February with new coffee breaks. So with that, I like to hand over to you, Michael, to take us through Universal Code, Excel, and updates on the designer.
Thank you, Jan. So first of all, let me take you through the history of ForNAV and the report pack, because this is important in the scope of this. Most of you have already been to our download page, and you have also observed that over time we have moved from the original report pack, which was based on Seaside, because that's what we had when we started ForNAV. Then when AL came along, we created an extension version of this running on-prem. Then cloud came along, and then we created a new report pack for the cloud version, which is also available from AppSource, of course. And latest, we have created a universal code version of the same report pack we have on cloud. And the background from moving from the Con on-prem solutions, which is based on DLL, to this universal code solution is that Microsoft a year ago announced the Universal Code initiative, which basically is a way of Microsoft from Microsoft to push people from doing on-prem extension to do cloud-only extensions. And if you don't move to these extensions in the new versions, you have to pay a penalty for your customers to use this. So as a reaction on this, we created the universal code version of our report pack, which is identical with the one you get on AppSource. We have been discussing with Microsoft on being able to use the AppSource version on-prem as well, but that's not possible. So right now we have two of them. So what we've created is a new report pack, and also from the next version of BC, Microsoft will move from using .NET Framework DLLs to a new world of using .NET Core, and that means that the old .NET Framework DLL will not work anymore. And as a consequence of that, we have moved to not using DLLs also on the on-prem version for Universal Code, but using a report service. So if you install the latest version of ForNAV, you get a new service which is called the ForNAV report service. You can see this is the direct print service we already have, and this runs on your machine. So that means that when you render a report, instead of calling a DLL, it will call out to this service that's in there. Some of you might think that this is slower, but actually this is a lot faster than calling a DLL, because we found out there's a lot of overhead in calling .NET DLLs from the Business Central service. So right now this is around 4 to 10 times faster than the DLL version. And if you compare to a Word report, it's probably in the 20x performance gains that you get over running a Word report. So there's a lot of things to gain on this. Also to be able to troubleshoot what goes on in this service, because it just runs on your machine, and even though we write to the event log on your Windows machine, you might want to know what's going on. So what we did was to create a local web service that monitors what's going on in here. So it basically lists the reports you have written out to using this service, when did this happen, and also the duration. You can see this is a report with 43 invoices with logos and everything, and this takes 250 milliseconds, which is not that much. Also, we have improved the way that you can report errors that you get from the service. So if something goes wrong during the rendering, there will be a pass to a debug file here, and if you send this debug file to us, we'll be able to troubleshoot what's going on. We can simply run this debug file on our own system and see exactly where the errors occurs with your data in it. That was not possible with DLL. So this gives you a lot better support when you have some really complex stuff going on in your reports and you want help on this. So we can help you by getting this debug file. But all of this has a lot of improvements in terms of stability and also on performance. That said, if you are on the DLL version, don't rush out to upgrade to this immediately, because we know there's a lot of code that comes from the classic version of NAV that also has a lot of side effects, and in some cases these will not run on the cloud version of our code, because that depends on running on a service where we have to serialize the data set and do everything in the service. But we have a lot of documentation on what to do about this, and we also have a code to warn about this. But you can end up in a situation where your classic reports are not producing the exact output they did in the old days. So if you're happy with the on-prem solution running with the DLL, please stay there, because there's no reason to upgrade. But if you're on the newer versions or create new solutions, this universal code version of our app is the way to go. Over time, we'll invest more in this, but this is the future of ForNAV. So we'll still maintain the DLL version for the current versions, and that's up, including BC21. but since Microsoft is moving away from the framework, we cannot run on that anymore. So there will be no DLLs for 22 and moving forward. Okay, enough talk. Let's go to look at some of the enhancements we have done to design and also look at the Excel reports. So over there we have focused on creating more of a no-code, low-code experience for the designer, because we have seen that moving from C-side to Visual Studio Code has made it at least difficult for a class of people out there, because Visual Studio Code is nice if you're used to working in that world, but if you're not, it just gives you more work. So what we try to do is to wrap Visual Studio Code in our designer, so you can do most of it just using that. So in this case, I'm connected to my sandbox, but this could also work on-prem, of course. But let's create a completely new report, and you can see what I mean. So I'll have a template, and I'll just take the empty template, so we have a completely clean slate to work at. Need to wake it up and sign in, of course. Okay, so I have a new blank report and I can start working on this. So let's go and drag in a sales header and add that. And let's go and need to get the data back from BC, so it should wake up. I hope it does at least. So there's no, oh, here it goes, just BC has a late morning. So and let's go and add a sales line as well. And for those of you who worked with this before, you know that if I enter a sales line under my sales header, it would automatically look up the data item link. So in earlier versions of ForNAV, you then would have to create sections and then add the controls you wanted that. But able to make that easier, we have created a drag and drop experience. So if I go and say I want to have the number, then I want to have the of the name. Let's just take the type, which is down here. There's a lot of fields in here. And of course, I should mention that this field list includes all the fields in your system, not just the Microsoft ones, but also the ones in your custom layout extensions and in ISV extensions. Let's take them out. So I'll just take 3 of them. Now I'll press Shift and then I'll drop it on the, I think I forgot to click, sorry about that. So let's start again. I'll take the number, press Control to select the, let's just take the amount. So now I get a box in here. If I press Shift when I drop this, I get a new dot bound box in here, and I can select this body and header section. And what you get is that you get a table for the header dot, which we include, and the body has the number and the amount down here. And since we detect that amount is in here, we guess that you probably also want to have a total on this. If I click back on the sales line, you'll see that we have filled a lot of things out for you. So in this case, amount is not a calculated field, but if it was, we'll add this to the list over here, but we add it to the total field, so you have them in here. So this is a very easy way of adding these values to your report and get a new layout just for free. But let's look at some of the improvements we also did in here. So if I say, let's say I want to have the total not down here, but in the header up here. So I can just take the amount and drag this in. And of course, if you just do this with a sales line amount, you just get the amount on the first line. But if I click on the help button, then I can go into the JavaScript editor. And if you haven't seen this before, you will feel right at home, because this is exactly the same editor as used in Visual Studio Code. So we use the same editor, which is a great editor for using intelligence and syntax helping. So instead of having the amount, I have something called field extensions. Oops. Yeah, and I can take field extension for my amounts. And then there's a property called sum. And what this does is that it asks Business Central to give me the lines in the filter and create a sum of that. And the beauty of this, if this is a calculated field inside BC or flow field, sorry, then you get the sum in lightning speed, because it will use SQL Server to calculate this. So this enables you to basically do sums even though you haven't iterated over the lines. Also, if I just go back and say this, you can see we have also added a number of new functions. If I just write this on the next line, so one of them is the fig code, which is a function that you can use if you want the fig code on your report. So you just need to specify the 3 parameters you have in the fig code, and this will create everything, including the greater and less than signs in the fig code. So you don't have to think about the checksum or anything in there. We'll create that for you using this function. And also, even though this is not a new function, I want to advertise for the .NET format function. So if you format a control in ForNAV, you have a format string that you can add. But if you're adding more than one value in here from different fields, you might want to format each of them. So I can take my sales line dot amount in here, and then I can add a format string and also set the language. If I don't remember which format string to use, I can hover over the name of this and go to a cheat sheet where we have created. So I can go down and look at the numbers. Say I want to have the currency type, so and I just write that in a string. So this is typically used when you want to have special formatting on decimal numbers or on dates. So this is extremely useful when creating reports. But let's move on and look at some of the other enhancements. What we also did is to improve the report explorer. Not many knows that this tree over here is actually useful for moving things around. So let's say I want to have this header not being a header for each invoice, but I actually just want this to be a header that comes on top of the report as part of the sales header. And in here I can simply go to my header up here. I can move it to my sales header up here. You can see this is moved up here, and now it's up here. So I can move things around by just moving it in the tree, and that also is the case for tables and rows in here, where you can move them around without having to do a lot of work with the mouse over here on the design service. Also in here, even though this is not new functionality, I also want to just mention it that instead of having to write page extensions for adding an action to the new report I just created, I can simply do that in the designer in here. So I click on this extend pages, I can go and add a new one, and this will automatically take everything that has a link to the sales header. So I can go and choose the sales header, the sales order in here. So when I get the sales order page up, I will get an extension and an action that can take me to run this report. And I can also set a lot of other options on this. Also, we have functionality to create tables and extend tables, and also put these the new fields you were creating in here on your pages. So this is a great help if you are not a skilled AL developer, or if you rarely do these page extensions or table extensions. This will definitely help you doing that. And again, everything underneath here is AL code. So if you want to export this into AL files, then you can just go up here and say, I want to save this as an AL file on my hard drive, and then I can go and change the page extensions or table extensions I just created in here to make them better. But the code is pretty forward, and it's nicely written, so I encourage you to use this to get started, at least to create these things. So time is rushing, so let me move on. So a new part of the report family is a set of Excel reports that we created. As you all know, Microsoft announced Excel reporting a couple of versions ago, but actually they have just announced the technology. They haven't created any reports in there. So we decided to do that, and also to exploit how we could make this a great experience. So out of box, you get these 5 Excel reports, but I'll show that it's extremely easy to add new ones. So if I go to my customer list, I can show you one of them. And here, on reports, you can see I have the ledger entries in and the value entries. And if I run the value entries, which is the one with most data, you see I get the request page, but there's no option to print or anything because we want just the Excel sheet. In here, I can specify the posting dates and other filters, but also dimensions, because what we do underneath is that we create a query, which is super fast, and we create a query that gives me these entries per dimension per month to make sure that we're not transferring the whole database to the Excel sheet. But let's just take all of them because there's not that many in the demo database. Again, we need to wake up BC to get the data in here. So now it just has to download the Excel sheet that we have created. I want to enable editing to see what we're doing. So first thing we do is that we guarantee that all captions are in local language. Of course, this is English, but instead of having with SQL field names, we actually show the captions. So you see the customer number, the name, but in your language, that would be the same thing. The reason why it shows Danish captions up here is because the dimension codes are not translated in BC. So this is, I told you this was the value, and this is actually the customer entries, but that's not important. Also, we know that sometimes you want to drill back into to see what's going on in BC. So if I want to have the what makes up these numbers from the these dimensions in April 22, I just need to move the trial in here so I can click on this. I need to get through these warnings. It will bring me back into Business Central. I can see the numbers that create this cell inside Excel sheet. So let me just get to the page and I can show you. And of course, not anybody can press this link. You have to have the permissions to see these entries in here. Otherwise, your link will not work. But actually, there's some demo data in here, so you can see that this number is made up from these numbers in here. So in our case, these numbers are not the end of the world. You can actually drill back into BC. Also, since we know what's going on, we also create a pivot table that you can use as is, but you can also modify it and bring this back and use this as a template in the Excel report. last thing I want to show you on this, because we need to also give some time to René and Jakob, is that if I want to modify this, because we know that anybody who's using Excel, they often modify these spreadsheets, and they do it over time. So 1 month they add new stuff, and next month some different stuff, and we have to make sure that we support this scenario of ongoing changes. So if I can get back to my final report page, I can show you. Please wake up. Oh, here you go. Okay. So let's open the value entries report here and see how this looks in Designer. So first thing you will notice is that if you open the Excel layout, all the properties over here that sets the formatting or layout is not there, because we are only interested in the fields. Now I click on letter entries, you can see that this takes the shadow table we have our query called ForNAV value entries, and I have specified a number of fields in here that we bring into this query. But of course, we know that people want to extend this, and I can do that by just adding a JavaScript record. And if I go and say I want to have the item in here, and I want this to point to the value entries, we again set up a link between the two of them. So every time I get a new record and later entry table, it will automatically fetch the item that belongs to it. So now it needs to wake up and show me the fields. Here you go. And now I can simply go and add fields to this. So let's just go and add description. And here. So now what would happen is that if I run this report again, we'll also get the item description as a part of the table inside Excel. Of course, I can go and also modify this Excel spreadsheet I just created, create new tabs, doing formulas and everything, and we'll just, when you run it again, we'll simply update the values that we know of, and you can keep the rest, including new pivot tables or whatever you created in the Excel sheet. So we have made it extremely flexible and easy to maintain when you have these. Last thing I want to advertise is that we have also created a number of new properties for our JavaScript records. And the whole purpose of the JavaScript records is to avoid having to write AL code. So we have tried to squeeze as much into this as possible. So you can see down here, doesn't make sense in this world, but I can actually set a parent filter up. So if this was a sales line, I could set up a filter. I only want to get the item when the type on the sales line is item. Otherwise, this would be blank. I can also create iterations in here. So we support the next function inside JavaScript. So I can iterate over up to 100 records in my system to gather strings or whatever, and assemble these in a JavaScript construct. So this is getting closer and closer to what you can get with a normal AL construct. But this is all in Designer, and it also enables us to do this, even though this is run on our ForNAV service using Universal Code. But I think we should move on and see some of the other stuff that we have created for 7.0.
Thanks, Michael. I will quickly switch over to my screen. There we go. So I would like to tell you a little bit more about the changes in the ForNAV report pack. And first of all, in the last couple of releases we have added a number of new reports. The newest reports, the ones available with ForNAV 7.0, are marked with an asterisk, which are the Excel reports, which Michael has just demonstrated. We have the return shipment and the return receipt, blanket purchase order, the assembly order, and all of the transfer documents. And all of these were requested from us, so we've added them to the report pack. Of course, every time we have any issues with the report pack, we do fixes and upgrades, and the most important ones in the newest release is to prevent the update number printed for sales and purchase documents when creating the email body, which was a bug which we fixed. We have updated the ForNAV setup wizard to not replace the report selections automatically, which was causing trouble for people who were downloading, installing ForNAV in Business Central Cloud. Set up ForNAV with the standard setup, which would automatically replace all of the report selections, which would be a little bit annoying if you were not ready with all of your document layouts yet. So we fixed that. And finally, we've improved the import, download and deletion of logos and other files, which I will quickly demo. So I'll switch over to Business Central. So in Business Central, we have a lot of places in the ForNAV setup and the ForNAV file storage where we have logos and document watermarks. In the past, you would have to go through delete document watermarks and stuff, and you could never see what's in the system. Right now, in the latest release, if you just click on the logo, it will give you an option to download, update or delete, and if you hit download, you can actually see what's there. And if you hit update, you can choose your new logo, and if you hit delete, it will delete the logo. So that will make working with files a bit easier. Then we have a couple of new features. One of the new features is a full backup. Now in ForNAV we have a number of setup pages. You have the ForNAV language, you have your custom report layouts, you have the ForNAV setup, the ForNAV file storage. All of those had individual backup possibilities, but in the latest release we have created a feature where we can do a full backup of everything ForNAV. And if we look at that, back to Business Central, in the ForNAV setup we have a new action group called backup, and in the backup we can export, and if you hit export you enter the export backup worksheet, and in the export backup worksheet you can see everything that's in any ForNAV setup table. So I have a file in the ForNAV file storage, I have something in my ForNAV language, I have some custom layouts in the system, and I have a bunch of setup fields that I've added. And if I hit export all, it will export everything. If you hit export selected, obviously it will only export everything you've selected, and it will export this into a backup.zip file. And if you open that zip file, you quite simply see everything that's in here. So you have the ForNAV file storage, where I have the flower. And in the ForNAV language, I have some language settings in English, and in the ForNAV setup, I have some PDF files for the logos and stuff, and some other bits and bobs. So that should make everything easier to move from for instance, a sandbox to production. If you want to import, just hit import, select your file, and everything will import. And again, you get the backup worksheet, and in the backup worksheet you can choose what you want to import. You can choose to import everything or just one or two specific things. So that's the first feature I wanted to demonstrate. The second feature is one that we've talked about in various coffee breaks already, and that's the feature called temporary tables. What happens very often inside Business Central is that the data in Business Central is stored in either pretty complex data sets or in different tables or in different formats for different different versions of documents. One of my favorite ones is the item tracking. You can store lot numbers and serial numbers, expiration dates, etc. inside Business Central. Only depending on if you post or unpost, the data will be stored either in reservation entries or in item ledger entries. And getting the actual data involves diving deep into the murky depths of the Business Central dataset, which is a bit annoying if you're not very familiar with that specific dataset. So for these specific datasets, the VAT lines, sales tax lines, item tracking, assembly lines, and payment services, we have automated the gathering of the data, so we dive into the murky depths of Business Central, so you don't have to. So let's demonstrate that. Let's go to Business Central and let's check one of my sales orders. And inside this specific sales order, you will notice I'm selling 2 monitors. And in these monitors, if I go into the item tracking lines, you will notice that I've got a bunch of serial numbers. And if I inspect my dataset right here, you will notice that the source page of this table is temporary, which gives me no help whatsoever in finding this specific data. And since some of this stuff is posted, you will see if I scroll to the right that I've got 2 invoiced and 2 shipped on this specific sales line. So this data is scattered all over the Business Central database. So in order to get this data on my sales order, I am going to design my order report. And I will use some of the features that Michael has already demonstrated. I'm going to grab a data item and I will drop that on the line data item because I want the tracking specification for all of the line. And I will find my tracking specification table. I'm going to leave the data item link empty because ForNAV will do all of that for us automatically. So now I've got my tracking specification data item. And what I want is ForNAV to fill this data automatically, and to do so I need to specify that this is a temporary data item and that the auto-populate is going to be true. And you can do this for data items in custom report layouts. You can also do this for data items in actual AL files of ForNAV reports. As long as auto-populate and temporary are true, ForNAV will automatically try to fill the data in your table. Then, of course, we want to show some data, so I'm going to grab my tracking specification and I'm going to get the serial number and I am going to get the quantity base. I will drag those on top of my tracking specification and that will get me the data I want. And I'm going to make these yellow because otherwise it's not that easy to see what's what. So I will add them there. I'm going to preview my report with the order that had the item tracking lines. And there you go. Without writing any code or doing any sort of lookups whatsoever, I get the serial numbers for my sales lines. The great thing about using this temporary table construct obviously is that we can also use it in a template situation. So you can add these to the sales template and simply add the data item and the sections in all of the other reports, and everything will look exactly like you specify on the template. So very useful. At least we think it's very useful. We'd love to hear from you what you think. And of course, if there are any other data sets that are complex, that take a lot of time to set up, then we would love to hear from you because we can easily extend this temporary table feature to work with different data sets. And if you have any data sets in an ISV extension, then you can also extend the ForNAV temporary table code unit to extend it and add your own temporary datasets. Then finally, before I hand over to Jacob, coming soon, what we are working on right now, we've demonstrated the ForNAV backup. Currently that backs up the company that you are currently working in. We've extended that to back up all of the companies in a single zip file, which is useful if you work with a database with multiple companies. We have created a temporary table for a repeater. For instance, if you want to print one label per number of quantity on your sales line, you have a sales line with 5 items, quantity is 5, you want to print 5 labels, well, we're creating a repeater temporary table to do just that. We're working to upgrade the label module because some of the labels were a bit tricky to design. They were created in a time when we still lived in Seaside, and designing and editing reports was a bit more difficult than it is right now. And as always, if you have any suggestions on how to on things you would like to have added to the report pack, please let us know. And that's all I have to say about the report pack today. If you have any questions, obviously let us know in the question box, and we will move to Jacob, who wants to show you something about direct print.
Okay, thank you, Renee. I'll just share my screen with you. So direct print, it's been in the product for a little over a year, but some of you may not have seen it yet. So I'll just start by giving you like a 3-minute introduction to what this is. So let me just show you. This is a list of reports, and the problem that we are trying to solve with direct print is that when you print a report in Business Central, you just get this handled by the browser in the printer selection. So we wanted to bring printing back in the product like we had in the old Navision days. And in order to do that, we introduced something called direct printers. So a direct printer is kind of a virtual printer that you can set up in a table that we introduced. So you can create a printer yourself. I'll create one called my printer, and I will hook that up to a local printer. Right now I'm in the cloud, but this also works on the universal code and the on-prem report packs. I'll hook it up to a local printer, and the system already knows about my local printers. So I can select the printers. Now I created a virtual printer called my printer, which is hooked up to a local printer. In this case, it's a PDF printer. If I had a physical printer like this Canon printer down here, I can also set up a lot of other things like paper formats, and I can actually also set up printer-specific paper trays. It also knows about the specific paper trays that I have on this Canon printer. So after setting up a direct printer, I can go to the printer selection table. This is also a table that many of you know. It's been there since the old times. And I can just simply choose that I want for all my reports, I want to use my printer. Close this, and the next time I run a report, it will automatically choose my printer, and I can simply print to this. What happens now is that the print job goes to a print queue located on Business Central, and it's sent to my local printer using a Windows service, the direct print Windows service that Michael briefly showed you. And if I bring up my local printer queue for this PDF printer here, you can now see that I have a job waiting here. It's created right now, and this printer is paused, so it's not processed, but it's already on my local queue. So in short, what we did is we started a print by a user on Business Central. It was saved to a print queue also on Business Central, and it was downloaded directly by a service running on Windows and printed to a local printer. Everything stays on Business Central, so until it's downloaded, so there's no issues with GDPR or any other stuff when you compared to when you send your print jobs to an external provider for processing the print jobs. So we created this solution because we wanted to be able to print from a browser and any other device that are not connected to printers today. We want to have centralized control over our print jobs and a lot of other stuff. So I'll just skip over these other requirements that we have to get fast forward to some of the new stuff in 7.0. So the new stuff we have in 7.0 is we have improved the printer capabilities for Zebra printers. Those of you who have printed labels, you probably know that most label printers are from a brand called Zebra printers, and they have a special language. You can still use the normal designer experience in ForNAV to create labels, because most Zebra printers also have Windows printer drivers that we fully support, but now you can also print using the native Zebra language. This means that you can use the Zebra label designer to design your labels, and in this screenshot here, I created a very simple label with a description and a number for an item label. And when I created that in the Zebra designer, this is not the ForNAV designer again. So I can go to the print option, and I can actually choose to print this to a file. And when you print Zebra language to a file, you get something that looks like this. This is the native Zebra language, and you can see here I have the number and I have the description. These are actually placeholders that I want to replace every time I print it. So the next thing is that I can take this Zebra language. This is a short code example that I've made, where I've made a base 64 version of the Zebra file. I can get the string out of the base 64 content, and I can replace the number and the description with what I want to have in the label. And then I can use on the direct print queue, I can simply use a function called create to create a print job called item label using a Zebra demo printer I have set up, and the in stream with the actual content, and tell this that it's a Zebra content. When it's downloaded and printed, it will be sent to the Zebra printer as native Zebra language. This is what it looks like on the printer queue. It's simply sitting there as any other print job, but it's a Zebra print job. This was a very fast walkthrough of what you can do with Zebra printers. This works both with the service-based solution we have for direct print, and it now also works with the client-based version. I will not go into details what the differences are here because it takes a little more time, but you can find more information on this on our website. Okay, I think I will go back to you, Jan.
Thank you, Jakob. So now it's time for questions, and we already have a couple of questions. But if you have any questions that you haven't asked, please use the question tool in GoToMeeting. So first question is, hi, which ECMAScript version is supported by ForNAV JavaScript editor? Michael?
This is a really good question. So actually, I don't know, because what we do is that we automatically upgrade the editor whenever there's updates from Microsoft. And also in the devil is in the detail, because we actually have TypeScript syntax checking turned on to help you, but underneath we simply execute this as JavaScript in an ECMAScript 6 compatible engine that we also get from Microsoft. So you can actually get away from doing some constructs in the JavaScript so that's not supported in runtime, so you get an error, or vice versa. But we thought that this was the best way of balancing the two of them.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. What means FIK or FIK? And that's a Danish payment code. I'm sure people outside of Denmark are not interested, and the people in Denmark know exactly what it is. How to access PDF cheat sheet for format other than from within function?
Yeah, so great question. There's also a KP article on .NET formatting, but beyond the cheat sheet, you can simply just Google .NET format decimal or date or something like that, and you'll get tons of web pages, include the official ones from Microsoft, that will explain to you what to do. So there's a lot of information about this on the internet.
Okay. Then there's a short question. What does the star mean in the new report list? And the stars means that the reports are new in ForNAV 7.0. The other reports are also new, but they were released prior to 7.0. So that's why we made that difference.
Oh,
sorry?
Oh, I misunderstood. So I thought Manfred meant in the designer, if there's a star next to it, then it means new. But this is a different thing, of course.
Okay. The next question from Manfred. With Excel reporting, can I do something like office automation, load in an Excel template, and transfer data from BC to fields in the sheet?
Yeah. So actually not. So the way Microsoft has designed this Excel reporting feature is that you initiate the report from Business Central, and Business Central fills up the spreadsheet with data, and then it's downloaded. So it's sort of the other way around. Getting the data just using a data source in Excel is how many other systems do it, but there's a lot of problems with that. So I think the current solution where you initiate everything from Business Central is the right one right now for BC.
Okay, next question. What is included in the label module update? I think that's for you, Renee.
Yeah, that's at least the sales shipment label and the production label. And if there are any other labels that are difficult to design, we will upgrade them as well.
But that is to come, right?
That is to come in the one of the next releases of ForNAV.
Yeah. Okay. So I think a follow-up on the JavaScript question. So we can also enter TypeScript into the editor, question mark.
Yes, yes, you can, but it will not work because we have a JavaScript interpreter underneath. We're not interpreting TypeScript.
Okay. Which kind of BC license is needed for the print service account when it's running on a print server? Jakob?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about this. It's so it's basically a normal user that needs access to the printer queue table. I know this was not an exact answer to the question.
I think our experience shows that no additional users are needed for print service, right?
Yeah, it's typically just a normal user that is used for the print service.
Yeah. And then, of course, you need to have the ForNAV license, but that's a different story.
Yeah, but all the direct print stuff, it's included in the ForNAV license. So if you already have the ForNAV license, it's nothing else is required, even though this also prints RDLC and Word reports.
Exactly. Or vice versa. If you only need direct print, you get ForNAV for free. Anyway, any other questions? One coming in here now. So one license is blocked in BC.
So there's a question above Jan.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. There's a license type application, but this is not working with the print service. So one license is blocked in BC. I don't think it's blocked, Jakob, right? It's just a normal user.
Again, I don't know for sure.
We'll look into it and get back to David. And
yeah, we'll get back to David on this. But this is This is only regarding on-premise, because in the cloud solution, where this was originally designed for the cloud world, but it has proven to be extremely useful on premise as well. When on cloud, it's an Active Directory application that is the user and not a normal user. But on premise, it's connecting like a normal user.
Okay, so we look into this and come back with a
yes, we have to look into it.
Answer. Yeah. All right. Last chance for questions. Otherwise, I'd just like to remind you again about our knowledge base and our coffee breaks. Good places to look for additional information. And then I want to say thank you to Michael, to Renee, to Jacob for doing this today, and of course thanks to all of you for joining. We have one more question just coming in here. Is there any limit to what fields I can sum in the header? Michael? Michael?
Michael, you're muted.
Michael? Apparently we lost Michael. So Mark, we'll come back to you with an answer on this one directly. I guess you don't know the answer, Renee or Jacob?
No, I'm not sure.
As far as I know, any decimal or integer field.
Okay, but we'll double check, Mark, and then we'll come back to you. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining today. Thanks for your time and have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.